many are speculating the events in Venezuela give a green light to Chinese President Xi Jinping over Taiwan. The Straits Times reported it was the top topic trending on Chinese social media site Weibo on Saturday, with more than 440 million views. The report said Chinese drew a comparison with Taiwan, with one user posting, "I suggest using the same method to reclaim Taiwan in the future." Jeffrey Robertson, former president of the UN War Crimes Court in Sierra Leone, told The Guardian that, quote, "the most obvious consequence is that China will take the opportunity to invade Taiwan." So, Michael, just bringing you in from the Philippines, let me start with you. Let me put the question to you. Does this US attack justify or accelerate a Xi Jinping attack on Taiwan?
I don't think it justifies or accelerates or gives a green light, or all of those takes are bad takes.
Why is that, given that, US's policy on China and Taiwan is basically fundamentally based on no use of force by keeping the status quo?
Well, first of all, the PRC has never placed Taiwan under international law because international law says Taiwan's status is unresolved. And there are various other things from international law, such as UN agreements on decolonization, that could apply here. So the PRC has carefully avoided that. What it's done instead is used a kind of lawfare to construct an alternative narrative based on the Cairo Declaration, Potsdam, Japanese instrument of surrender, all these things. And if you want to talk about international law and precedents, the PRC already occupies two countries. They passed the anti-secession law in 2006, which announced their intention to kill Taiwanese if they attempted to live in an independent country. In 2024, you might remember they had a diplomat attempt to ram the vice president's vehicle while she was on a visit to Europe. So they're already well experienced in breaking international law. So they don't need a green light. The opposite of that point is also important. If you believe that the US gave them a green light, you also believe that US restraint was keeping them from attacking Taiwan, which is obviously absurd.
Okay, Gemon, let me ask you, there's some analysts speaking to Reuters claiming that this could somehow strengthen China's claim over Taiwan, Tibet, even over the South China Sea.
So first of all, I don't believe that the activity that the U.S. did has anything to do with Taiwan other than making China weaker in the world, because Venezuela was one of their key assets that they were going to use against the United States should there be a war between Taiwan and China. So I see it as a positive move that reasserts U.S. involvement in the world, especially against countries that sponsor narco-terrorism and support autocratic regimes like Russia, China, Iran, that have malintent against the U.S. and other democracies.
But if the U.S. can decapitate the leader of another country through force, why can't China do the same thing to Taiwan?
Well, they want to. The last exercise talks about decapitation. That is their intent. But the thing is, they can't do it. They don't have the experience and they don't have the wherewithal to do it right now. And what they're doing instead is looking at what the U.S. did, because they've never done something like that, ever.
So you believe that, putting aside the argument of justification, you believe that the capability of China is not there. That is what's holding them back from any attack of Taiwan.
I think there's two things holding them back: capability, which you mentioned, and intent. Xi Jinping has to order them to go. And what he's done is he told them to be ready by 2027. So that's the capability. That's the goal of the PLA. But after that, it's up to him when they go.
Okay. Ronan, we're here in Taiwan. How are Taiwanese reacting to that. Let me just quote what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Taiwan is saying, that they're closely monitoring developments and will continue to work with the US and other democratic partners to promote regional and global security and stability. So how are Taiwanese reacting to this?
Yes, basically, we try to make sure that the focus will be on the humanitarian crisis and also the notion that the U.S. is trying to actually stabilize regional stability. And then the Taiwanese move also emphasize this is very key, the smooth democratic transition within Venezuela. The reason for that is because we have to emphasize the democratic component followed by the U.S. actions. That's the key. That also suggests that putting Taiwan and Venezuela in the same basket is not the right way to go. And in terms of how the Taiwanese civil society respond to that, basically it's divided. Some people worry that it suggests that the unpredictability of U.S. foreign policy, but some people actually, just like you mentioned, that it shows that the air defense zone the provider to Venezuela is actually China. But the U.S. was able to actually paralyze this system within just a couple hours. It suggests the capability of the U.S., not the capability of China or PLA per se.
Yeah. Okay. Michael, bringing you back, Ronan said that Taiwan cannot be put in the same basket as Venezuela. How is Taiwan different to Venezuela?
Well, it's a democracy, and its leader was elected, unlike Maduro, who was not recognized by many nations around him. Maduro's renewable was very popular. Lies would not be. An attack on Taiwan would have a huge effect on the global balance of power. That would not happen, whatever happened to Venezuela.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's also the issue of, the status quo here in the Taiwan Strait. This is decades old, 8 decades old, compared to Maduro taking power as 2013.
Yes, and the PRC has done this for 7 decades now. So Trump's actions won't affect that.
Okay. I mean, I want to pick up also on something that Ronan talked about, unpredictability, this perhaps as a Trump strategy. Some people thought that Xi Jinping would see this as a green light. What do you think? How does he view the situation now that they've seen this? And they admitted that they were shocked.
Well, first of all, I think Xi personally is a bit scared from the event because for several reasons. First of all, it gives people in China the notion or the idea that you can overthrow a dictator. It's a major problem for the CCP because they are a dictatorship. So that's the first problem. The second problem is how easy it was to do it. So I'm sure he's a bit scared these days and wondering about his own safety and the safety of the regime. And then I think autocratic regimes naturally are paranoid. And so when another autocratic regime gets taken out, it causes major problems in their network. And especially one that, as I mentioned before, is a prime supplier of oil. 80 or 90% of the oil coming out of Venezuela, which has the largest oil reserves in the world, goes to China illegally.
Ronan, but more broadly speaking, I mean, this is what some of the critics have said, that it's accelerating the slide away from a rules-based order to one where might is right, also, sort of normalizing aggression. If this comes from the United States, is there a broader long-term effect?
Yeah, so I want to actually address this question through 2 points. Number one, so what the case of Venezuela demonstrate to China is the lack of capability to actually invade Taiwan this moment. I think that demonstrates that they are not ready. They know that. But in terms of the broader implications, obviously, if Venezuela is a democratic country, and I think the rule-based order is collapsing. Fortunately, is an autocratic state, and it has a lot of problems. So basically, delving back to China, the reason why China's action against Taiwan won't be justifiable is because actually Taiwan is a democratic state, and our leader basically was elected through votes, and leaders' opinion have been demonstrated. Right, so that's the reason why, even if there's some domestic oppositions against some policy, but there's like disagreement over policy issues. We don't question Taiwan's sovereignty. We don't question the legitimacy of Dai Qingde, even if we may disagree with his policy. So it's totally different. So any event when China is trying to use force against Taiwan, this kind of action will be questioned and also highly contested throughout the entire world.